Hello and welcome to Kathy's Corner. My name is Kathy Holt. I am a partner and trainer with Stewardship Resources, LLC. In working with church finance teams as well as church bookkeepers, we have found at least 90% have some kind of an issue with their payroll. Part of the reason is because that church and clergy payroll is not the same as normal business payroll. Another big reason is because those involved in putting together the payroll packages or processing the payroll have little or no training in church and clergy payroll. There are not many areas where the IRS can audit the church. Payroll is probably the most vulnerable area for an audit. The bottom line is church and clergy payroll done incorrectly can be very costly, not just for the church, but for the employee or the pastor as well. With that in mind, this video will begin a series of videos related to church and clergy payroll. So today, let's start with an overview. So if 90% of the churches we work with have issues with their payroll, what are some of those issues? The church and clergy payroll is incorrectly processed like normal business payroll. Church payroll is just different, especially when it comes to the clergy payroll. Required documentation is missing. There are several employment documents that employers are required to have for each employee, and that includes the pastors. There is no understanding or a misunderstanding of IRS and state rules that are related to church payroll. Anyone involved in any area of payroll needs to be aware of those rules. Taxable benefits are not run through payroll. Offering benefits to your employees and pastors is a really good thing, but it is very important that those benefits are treated correctly within payroll. Payroll items are set up incorrectly within the accounting or payroll software. If those items are not set up correctly or not even included in the payroll setup, then correct amounts are not going to flow to the quarterly payroll tax returns or the employee W-2 forms. There is no check and balance for submitted employer payroll returns or W-2 forms. In accounting and payroll, there is a check and balance for everything. So knowing what those checks and balances are and following those checks and balances is very important. Employees are paid as 1099 vendors. According to the IRS, if a church has paid anyone for a service, they are only one of two things. They are either an employee who gets a W-2 or they are an independent contractor who gets a 1099. And they are only an independent contractor if they truly have a business doing that service that they provided for the church and the church is just one of their customers. So who needs to have an understanding of church payroll? Well, the church leaders who put together compensation and benefit packages for the pastors and the staff. It's important to understand the IRS rules that are related to each item within the planned compensation and benefit package. And there needs to be an understanding of the difference between who's an employee who gets a W-2 and who's an independent contractor who gets a 1099. Who else needs to understand the difference between church and clergy payroll? Those who process the payroll, who prepare the returns and prepare the W-2 forms. And they also need to have an understanding of the IRS, the federal and state payroll rules that are related to each item within the planned compensation and benefit package. They need to know how to set up the payroll module properly, as well as each payroll item within the chosen accounting program. It's important they know how to correctly process payroll, know how and when to make the payroll tax payments, know how and when to prepare quarterly and annual payroll tax returns. And often we find there's a confusion between the payroll tax payments and the payroll tax returns. They're two different things. They need to understand the difference between who is an employee who receives a W-2 and an independent contractor who receives a 1099. Now, we have a lot of churches that tell us, well, we outsource our payroll. That way we don't have to have all that knowledge and that understanding. We let them take care of it. Unfortunately, that's not true. Even if your payroll is outsourced, you need a basic knowledge of church payroll. And why? Because church and clergy payroll is very specialized. So the question is the payroll provider specialized in church and clergy payroll? Just because your outsource says they do payroll for lots of churches does not mean that they do it correctly. And over the years that we have found that the big box payroll providers are not specialized in church payroll. You have to watch them very carefully, and most of the time you even have to train them on how to do your payroll correctly. Is the payroll provider taking the information you give to them without asking questions to get further clarification on benefits? That is a big red flag. Every benefit has its own list of rules, and there are a lot of them. Let me give you an example. Pension. Well, what type of pension is it? Is it an expense of the employer or an elected deferral that is deducted from the employee's paycheck, or a combination of both? Is the payroll provider asking year-end questions? Be sure that nothing was missed during the year. This should be a normal practice of any outsourced payroll provider. If they're not asking, that's another big red flag. Consider choosing a payroll provider who is truly specialized in church and clergy payroll. And even then, you still need to have a basic knowledge of the rules. Why? Because if there is an error, the church is the one that's held responsible. The biggest takeaways I hope you get from this video are these: that church and clergy payroll is different from normal business payroll. And training is very important for those who put together payroll packages, those who process the payroll, and those who prepare the payroll tax returns and the W-2 forms for the employees. If you're interested in learning more about church and clergy payroll, check out the helpful resources and other videos in the information section below. Thank you for the opportunity to share this information with you. As always, if you have any questions or need help, you are more than welcome to contact me at the email or the phone number listed below. Please like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, God bless you and have a fantastic day.